You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audio book club.
Greetings, explorers. I'm one of your hosts, Dennis, joined today by
Johnny.
And as just the two of us, we're reading our summer special. Today we're discussing Scooby Apocalypse, written by Keith Giffen and J. DeMatteis. Sorry about that if we got your name wrong. We hope you already read today's title because both of us have read the book, so beware. Spoilers ahead. Explorers can share their opinions and thoughts with us by leaving a comment on our Facebook page or over on Twitter and Instagram at GN Explorers Club. Graphic Novel Explorers Club is available wherever fine podcasts are found.
So today we're looking at Scooby Apocalypse Volume 1, which covers issues 1 through 6. It was written by Keith Giffen and J. DeMatteis. I'm not sure how you say that last name.
Yeah.
We butcher last names on this podcast all the damn time, yeah. Art by Howard Porter, Dale Eaglesham. I'd prefer it as Eaglesham. And I imagine there's an eagle that goes out and catches just hams, not pigs. Oh. Gaia! Wellington Alves and Scott Hanna. I don't believe there's any relation to Hanna-Barbera by Scott Hanna. The series was published by DC Comics as part of Hanna-Barbera's Beyond series. Scooby Apocalypse was first published in 2016 and ran until 2019 and was based on a concept by Jim Lee, the world-famous Jim Lee. We previously covered the Hanna-Barbera Beyond version of the Flintstones in episode 40 with Anthony Sino, friend of the show. And right off the back, Dennis, comparing the two, now that we've read two different stories set in this Hanna-Barbera Beyond, which of the two did you prefer?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm super biased because I will say, I don't know about you, Johnny, but I am a super Scooby fan. And so I've watched every iteration, even the terrible one where they just had Scrappy. I think it was Daphne, some Hispanic kid.
Oh, I never saw that one. I remember there was briefly in the 80s when we were kids, they brought the cartoon back and Scrappy. It was like the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy.
Right. They really tried to push the Scrappy, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was their way to like get young kids into Scooby-Doo. I imagine it was because of the Muppet Babies that they brought Scrappy around, or maybe Scrappy came before him, but Scrappy was terrible. Well,
Scrappy's a very 80s, I don't know, trope, right? He's like, what's his name from He-Man, that weird wizard floating thing.
Orko.
Orko. Any of those cute characters, Snarf.
Or McCool or whatever from The Simpsons when Homer on the Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah, Poochie. So he was kind of like that. And I feel that was a kind of that was executives thinking that's what kids wanted. But I knew from the get-go, even as a big Scooby fan, I did not like Scrappy-Doo. I hated Scrappy-Doo.
Yeah, Scrappy was pretty annoying.
But I've watched every iteration pretty much of Scooby-Doo, and in fact, I still have a soft spot for kind of the tropes and old school design. I will say that if you haven't caught it at all, I highly recommend. It was on the Cartoon Network probably about almost 8 years ago. It was Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, and that took a little more serious tone. It involved a little bit more of a serialized story. It threw in some Cthulhu lore, yeah, and it was very meta, like it was self-referential. They actually even mentioned, like, they talked about Scrappy briefly and how they never mentioned him again. So I'm a big fan. So I would say between the two, I preferred the Scooby-Doo Apocalypse world itself. How about you, man?
I'm not as big of a Scooby-Doo fan. I did like in the 90s they had a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Oh yeah,
and it
highly underrated.
Yeah, that show was fucking absurd. It was absurdist, weirdo humor. I felt like it was probably, I should have looked it up before we recorded this, but I feel like a lot of it felt like a precursor to Adult Swim, but a morning kids show, because it was just out there and weird. There was a lot of running gags through the show. Like, in fact, there was a character named Red Herring, and Fred would always accuse him of being, and they were all children, and childhood Fred would always accuse Red Herring, who looked like a like a biker kid, like a roughneck biker kid, of being the culprit of whatever mystery they just solved, and it was never red herring, and it was just it was a really good show. Between these two, though, I preferred the Flintstones. I thought it kept in the vein of them trying to solve a mystery, and the mystery of this comic book is a bunch of four scientists, of which Velma is probably one of them. She keeps flip-flopping in the story, saying 4, and then a couple of times she lets slip almost 5. Created this nanite cloud to infect humans, to get rid of the worst part of humanity, like anger and fear and greed. But it goes horribly wrong, and the gang doesn't like each other at first. There's a lot of conflict between all of them. And I thought, and it didn't really say anything about the world at large, whereas the Flintstones was really saying something about our society as far as like the industrial war complex, capitalism, family dynamics. Like the Flintstones felt a lot more, it had more weight to it, and while keeping a lot of the humor, way more funny than I thought it should have been. I'm talking about the Flintstones. Whereas the Scooby-Doo Apocalypse, it never really struck me as, I was never amused.
Yeah, I will say, and I agree with you on all points in the sense that I felt that the Flintstones one was more of a social commentary, using that world to make it, whereas Scooby-Doo definitely feels just more like an action film. I felt it was a good update, and it was a good twist. And actually, honestly, I wasn't expecting this to be the case, but things don't get resolved. I assumed this was going to be where, okay, they're going to get another monster of the week, or maybe monster every 2 issues. We don't get any resolution by the end of the story. It's still the world has gone to heck, as you were saying. The nanites basically transform some of humanity into these monsters, which look like classic movie demons and vampires.
Many of the creatures that they would run into in their mysteries. But I was really hoping there would be, I was really hoping that more of the monsters would harken back to the 60s cartoon where, you know, like they had the 3 ghosts that haunt the ice cream factory, and they all have the Neapolitan colors, like those, or some of those like swamp creatures that they'd run into.
Totally. Or maybe if they ran into the Joker and the Penguin.
Yeah, I mean, they could have. I mean, this is all owned by DC. That would have been funny if they had run into them. And maybe that happens in other volumes. We did, you know, we're only looking at volume 1, but that would be funny if somehow in their adventures they ran into like the Harlem Globetrotters or Mama Cass or Batman and Robin. Like that would be pretty funny.
I will note, once again, as I said, I am a Scooby super fan, so I actually still buy a lot of the direct-to-video stuff, and I still buy some of the TV shows. And in fact, we mentioned Pup Named Scooby-Doo, and I was going to buy that. It's you can buy the series and show my kids. But I did recently buy a series I wasn't aware of that came out a couple years ago called Scooby-Doo Guess Who, and it uses the old 60s style, and it's like the old series of short movies where they had guest stars. So you remember Don Knotts would appear and Mama Cass. Yeah. So this one had Weird Al. It actually had an appearance by Batman again.
Oh, more Wonder Woman.
More contemporary. Contemporary like guest stars and such. And then that was kind of funny too. Yeah, and both my kids grew up on it, on Scooby-Doo, so I made sure at least to brainwash them with that. I can't get them into Star Wars, but thank God both of them like Scooby-Doo. I will say, sadly, that they just recently released a CG movie, and that was not very good. That was, and that used a lot of, see, once again, like you mentioned, it's owned by DC, and they all own all of Hanna-Barbera, and they have at times tried to incorporate through different cartoon series other Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters, you know, Captain Caveman and all that. And they did do some of that in the new Scoob CGI movie, but it lacked a lot of the heart that I felt that most of the cartoons had. But going back to this book, yeah, I would agree overall in terms of meatiness and like actual social commentary, definitely Flintstones wins out. But for me as a super fan of Scooby, I like this twist on, it's not your typical just teenagers getting into some hijinks. It's a little bit of meta, but definitely more surface level. This is definitely more Avengers as opposed to Watchmen in terms of like, if you're comparing the two.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good comparison. Yeah, and I thought maybe that's what the Hanna-Barbera Beyond series is. It had a little bit more weight to it, like the Flintstones, but that's good to hear. I mean, if you're a Scooby-Doo fan, then yeah, this will kind of scratch that itch for you. So in the series, it's set apparently in the modern era, and all the characters have an update, but still call back to their classic color schemes. Like Daphne wears purple, Fred still wears his white shirt with instead of an orange ascot, it's just a handkerchief.
Right.
Daphne wears her orange turtleneck and the orange knee-high.
Velma.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Velma wears her orange turtleneck and knee-high socks, and Shaggy wears a green shirt, but and a goatee, but instead of being just like a hippie, he's updated with, now he's got like a sleeve tattoo and
spacers.
So I kind of like the update to the overall character designs. As we were saying in the beginning, the characters don't get along at first. Daphne and Fred are journalists. Fred's our cameraman. Daphne, I don't even know what you would describe her show. It's called Daphne Blake's, which I didn't know that was her last name. Mysterious Mysteries. And it seems like she's sort of kind of like a YouTube star, but used to be a really popular journalist.
She was a popular journalist, and then she kind of veered towards more sensationalism, almost like an Unsolved Mysteries type show. But then for whatever reason, they lost their viewers and they ended up being booted to like the Knitting Channel. And it's kind of like a Ghost Hunters kind of show. But I do like the dynamic and chemistry between her and Fred. Depending on the show, sometimes there's a potential romantic interest. Sometimes they're already dating. In this case, Fred is madly in love with her. In fact, proposes to her and has proposed to her multiple times, while she wants to keep things strictly professional and keep it, we're just friends.
Yeah, it's unrequited love on his side.
And I don't know exactly when they pivoted her character, but I know on Mystery Incorporated, it's shown that she does have like family who are, know how to use combat skills. And I know obviously in the live action, because Buffy was her actress, she knew karate and all that. So it's not unusual. Her character suddenly takes like a hardcore Rambo turn in this series. And it's not unusual for her character, given some of the canon, depending on the show you look at, that she actually has kind of almost a army brat kind of background, where this would be unusual for her.
And in some iterations, she's just like a rich kid, like in a pup named Scooby-Doo. She came from a very well-to-do family.
Very Veronica, as in Betty and Veronica. Yeah.
Velma is a scientist with this low-level military base or
complex,
base.
Right?
Yeah, complex, where experiments are done on animals, and Scooby's one of them, where they're trying to create an intelligent line of dogs, and Shaggy is his trainer. And we get some backstory on how Shaggy and Scooby came to be friends inside this complex. And one of the things about this story is Velma is very detached and removed from a lot of human interaction and relationships. And she's been at this base for, it's implied, many years, like several years. She's been working there for a long time. She's a doctor in one of these experiments. And Shaggy gets there just a few years prior to where the story picks up. And as this plays out, these humans are turning into monsters. They wind up having to kill a lot of creatures. And a lot of these creatures still have like some sense of who their identity and will recognize Shaggy and Velma. And when they kill them,
they're not just like blathering monsters.
Yeah.
Like the thing, they actually coherently speak. Yeah.
Yeah. And when they wind up having to kill one of these creatures, there's a lot of guilt and morality around like, are these things actually monsters? Are we just killing humans? Like, can we fix this? One of the things that I liked in the writing of this was Shaggy knows all these people. He says like, oh, that was Becky. She had a little boy at home. This guy had just got back from heart surgery. We all missed him while he was gone. And Velma's like, oh yeah, I don't know who that was. I just know their name.
Right. No, and then that's very interesting too, because most of the time in a zombie film, you're like, yeah, they're gone. You need to kill them, right? But here, I almost was like questioning, well, should you be killing them? Because we don't know if this is reversible or not. Well, so it's interesting to see that.
One of the things that I wanted to know is, what if this is so backtracking a little bit here. So these scientists create this nanite cloud, as we were saying at the beginning, that's supposed to
alter your DNA, right?
Yeah, and remove a lot of the bad parts of humans, as far as like things we do, negative things that we do, like guilt and greed. And then these scientists, it turns out, do something different to it. Velma finds out, and she contacts Daphne and Fred, because she's gonna, hey, I'm gonna give you guys a tell-all reveal about what's going on here. That doesn't happen when they all finally meet up, which happens through mistakes and happenstance. And they go into this base. They hide in a secret room that's supposed to be for these 4 scientists when these nanites are released. And the gang are the only ones in this room. The scientists, these 4 doctors, never make it to this room. When they're in there, the thing goes off, and she's like, oh no, the nanites have been released. This wasn't supposed to happen. When they get out, there's still some humans, but most everybody's turned into animals or these monsters. And one of the things I kept thinking was, like, what if they got doused with some sort of hallucinogen?
Oh, right.
And they're killing what they think are monsters, but they're actually
killing
humans, almost like Old Man Logan, how he was tricked into killing everyone. So I was like, oh man, that's pretty fucking dark if that's how the story plays out.
That in fact there was no nanites, and they were just totally just slaying normal human individuals.
Yeah, it was still an experiment. They just didn't know they were the experiment.
Right.
So
that would have been a dark twist. But yeah, I have a feeling. Yeah, it's true. Like we said, the mystery still hasn't been concluded. I assumed it would just be encapsulated. Maybe this volume would end with the mystery ending, but it hasn't. So I'm guessing, at least for a good chunk of this, it's going to be like maybe the overall arching thing, which would be interesting because it is called Scooby Apocalypse. So I don't know if this is the world they live in now. This is just, there's no other mystery. There's no other thing to happen.
It's just survival.
Yeah, yeah.
One funny thing in this is Scooby's number assigned to him as part of this experiment is 24601. It was drawn thicker than the rest of the font. So I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. So I went and looked it up, and that's the prison number of Jean Valjean in Les Miserables.
No way.
Yeah. And that number has been used numerous times since then in different media. It was Oscar Bluth's prison number in Arrested Development. It's the prison number assigned to both Sideshow Bob and Principal Skinner when he's captured by the Viet Cong. And it's just been, it's been used tons and tons of times.
I totally didn't think about that. Now that I think about that, Les Miserables, they even sing it. Yeah. So I wasn't even thinking about that. That's hilarious. Yeah, I do so we got the backstory of Scooby and how he was kind of the failed prototype. And I like how he gets picked on by the other dogs. And one of the dogs is like this little tiny one. And I was like, is that? And it turns out it's Scrappy-Doo.
Yeah.
And he hates Scooby.
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of the protagonists or antagonists of as the story goes on.
And I do like that through the story, he actually ends up mutating himself through some whatever built-in cybernetics or something. He ends up mutating himself so he's standing upright like he is in the cartoon, because he doesn't walk like Scooby. He ends up standing upright most of the time. So they kind of built that in.
And he gets puppy power. That was the thing that Scrappy would do. He'd get puppy power and be able to lift things over his head, stuff.
Oh my God, I hate it. Whenever he would say that, I hated him. Like, I was a little kid and I hated him so much. Whenever he would do puppy power, I would get like emotional rage.
And funny enough, mentioning Scrappy, he's the only one in his pack of dogs that still has the ability to vocalize. The other dogs have to communicate via these goggles that they all wear. And at one point, he's basically lamenting that these other dogs talk too much. And he's like, the only dog I really liked was that southern dog, Huck, which is alluding to Huckleberry Hound.
Right.
Which I thought was pretty funny. So I think there is a Huckleberry book, and I'd be curious if it splits off from this some way.
I did see briefly there were possibly some spin-offs where there was one that involved Secret Squirrel, that's spy agent from Hanna-Barbera as well. And so, yeah, I would be interested in see what other books that they did that they tried to make. I actually haven't explored much of this Hanna-Barbera Beyond, and I'd be interested in looking some of the other ones.
Yeah, they have there's a Snagglepuss story. There's the one with there's the Racer series. So there's several of these books.
No, they had
they're
not
doing
Quest
them anymore. What's that?
I think they had a Johnny Quest one as well.
Oh, that'd be good. And all of these Beyond books wrapped up in 2019. So I guess wrapping up here, you liked the book.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to finish the series. Like I said, I consume pretty much everything Scooby, even the bad stuff. I found out they had Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island. I've bought in like Scooby-Doo meets the WWE. So I and then my kids still love them. So, I'm thankful for that because I can at least use them as an excuse to continue watching that. So I definitely will continue reading this.
That's awesome, man. I as an adult nerd, as a latchkey kid, as I'm sure you were too, we grew up sort of like with the television as our other parent. And
right.
So there's a lot of things I still love and appreciate, but I don't have that sort of commitment to it. Like any new iteration, I love the Thundercats as a kid, and any new iteration of it, I'm like, meh, I'm not going to check it out.
Snarf, snarf.
Yeah, Star Wars. I've sort of washed my hands of Star Wars.
Oh man, you got to check out the Rebels and Clone Wars cartoons. Solid series.
No, I like the Clone Wars, but it's just been diminishing returns with each new story within the Skywalker realm. It's sort of diminishing returns. Star Trek. I mean, I need to check out Picard and Discovery, but those Star Trek movies, the Abrams movies, sort of missed the mark for me in many, many ways of what Star Trek is. And it's about discovery. It's not about action sequences. And I sort of like, maybe I'm done.
It's funny because it's ironic, isn't it, that we grew up where we had very few either good stories for us, or there just wasn't a lot out there. And now we're just totally submerged in geek culture, right? I mean, I would never have thought there would have been an Avengers movie that had more than one superhero. We grew up where like you had a Batman movie and that was it. If you were lucky, he might say Clark Kent in passing, but you would never see Superman and Batman in the same movie. You would never see Iron Man plus Captain America. But now it's almost too much. And it's like you almost miss the days where it was like you only saw a Star Wars film maybe once every 20 years, if that, or that was it. And then everything else was through comic books. And now we're just saturated with so much of that. It's almost too much of a good thing. So,
but I think my point though was like it's now we're at a point of quantity, not quality.
Right.
And and I would prefer the quality as opposed to just the complete bombardment of nerd shit. Well, anyways, we should have said this at the beginning. We're still recording things remotely. We're in California, and there's still shelter in place, so we're recording these remotely. So the sound is not quite what it is when we're in the studio. Hopefully, we'll be back in the studio soon, bringing some new episodes that way. But until then, where can people follow the podcast?
You can follow us on Insta and Twitter at Gene Explorers Club.
Cool. And we'll be back in a little bit with another summer special episode.
Scooby, Scooby, Doo!